all of the garbage that we see in politics, where some people are, accuse people of being bigots and racists and things like that. And you just don't hear any of that stuff going on, do you? On the news channels, just talking about just normal things, trying to get back to life, necessities, of trying to help people with food and water and lodging, getting a house back on its foundation, just, things like that all of us need. And this is the kind of stuff that makes me happy, where people are not fighting over stupid things, to be quite frank with you. But this is the common sense, man, we try to bring with you. The national debt, it's been mounting. We've been seeing this. We all see the national debt, but it exceeded $20 trillion for the first time last Friday. $20 trillion for the first time. This is right after President Donald Trump signed into law a bill that extended the debt ceiling and provided emergency relief to victims of Hurricane Harvey. It needed to be done. But the United States national debt has officially topped $20 trillion. Now, these were temporary measures to raise the debt ceiling and keep the government funded through December 8th. Now, of course, the Republicans not very, very happy about this. The Dems happy. It needed to be done. Very tricky stuff. But, man, the numbers to see this, it's just agonizing. According to the Treasury Department, the U.S. debt rose $20.162 trillion. And before signing the debt, was struck in its stationary limit, $19.84 trillion. That means the debt jumped $317.645 billion in a single day. $317.645 billion in a single day. And the debt has remained in its mandatory level since March. The government's been using the so-called extraordinary measures to keep the debt at its ceiling. Now the Treasury is able to borrow freely until December 8th, in which time the outstanding debt amount will become the new debt ceiling. So if you've seen this thing expand and say, man, that looks fatter, well, now you're going to know. Many Republicans, yes, from last week, stunned by what was Trump's willingness to allot money for hurricane relief, with the Democrats, Schumer and Pelosi, just looking also pleased. But sometimes when you have to strike a deal to get a deal done, especially because of hurricane relief, you get it done. And even Paul Ryan was on board saying, now we can focus on doing something else. This is kind of the clearing of the decks. Even Ryan saw that it was a smart move with Donald Trump. I think that Donald Trump, as he's moved in and has realized now that, he can play both sides. I don't think he's married up to either of them. I think he realizes how interesting politics really are inside the Beltway, how to deal with politicians. And, he's kind of beating them at their own game, so to speak. It's unique. I think it's a new strategy for Trump. I think it's kind of, shaming them. I think he's doing it. I mean, he did it with his, 16 counterparts, okay, when he beat them at their best games, okay? These polished, seasoned politicians, and now with senators there in Washington, beating them at their game, keeping them on their toes, not knowing what he's going to do. This is campaign promises that Donald Trump made. And though that it might seem like the Democrats are gloating, I just think Donald Trump is just seriously, forget about the politics in the politics. I think he's just basically saying, I want to get the job done. No matter how I can get it done, let's just work together. It'd be preferred if we can do it bipartisan. That would be great. I mean, some people are just trying to read into the tea leaves saying that Donald Trump is much more Democrat than Republican, and now he's showing his true colors, and that if you're a Trump supporter, now you have to fear. And what I'm just purporting here is I don't think it's anything of the sort. I think Donald Trump is basically sending his message to his base saying, I made a promise to you, Mr. and Mrs. America. I'm going to get the job done. You're going to see me not act like this politician. I'm going to act more like a businessman. I'm going to roll up my sleeve, and I think that's exactly what he is doing. And there's going to be more plays like this. It will continue on like this. This is not going to be the last time. Not going to be the last time. Switching gears here, there's two women senators, Republican Susan Collins, take note, and Democrat Kristen Gilbert. Gibrid is her name. Gibrid, right? Yeah, they're challenging President Donald Trump's military transgender ban. So they're going to introduce an amendment by blocking an exclusion based on gender identity alone. Yeah, two senators seeking a Senate vote to get their amendment attached to the National Defense Authorization Act, the defense policy bill that's on the Senate floor this week. They say our armed forces should welcome the service of any qualified individual who is willing to be capable of serving our country, Collins said on her website. If individuals are willing to put on the uniform of our country, be deployed in war zones, and risk their lives for our freedoms, then we should be expressing our gratitude to them, not trying to exclude them from military service. Now that sounds okay. In a way, because that's just the left, the way they paint it with the paintbrush, because it's all the underlying things, the things that are hidden, that are not discussed. They're willing to put on the uniform and sacrifice themselves for our country, then they should be we should be more than willing to stand behind them and give them anything and everything that they want, no matter what disruption it does, no matter what it does to our military funding and what it does to the morale or to anything happening on the ground. It doesn't matter. If they're willing to do it, we just going to have to put up with it. Forget about what any of the generals have to say or what the people have to say about it. If they're willing to do it, we're just going to do it. We're just going to accommodate them. At first blush, you read into it, they're very crafty. They say that the devil's in the details. Well, in this case, and in many cases, it's how clever they are able to paint this. It's like a great mural. They paint it in. Oh, that's so beautiful. But you don't know what was painted over. And that's usually how these folks decide to make laws that try to protect these folks that are really doing more damage than good. And when you look into why this was passed, and it wasn't so much them not wanting to allow these folks to be able to serve their country and do it well, because a lot of them were serving just fine. It's the disruption that causes, with the not knowing and the insecurity, maybe in some, maybe you can call them homophobes or whatever you want to call it, but disruption in the barracks, disruption in the field. There's already tension, already anxiety, already frustration, sexual, all these different things that come out. It's just not a good thing, folks. Our armed forces are very welcoming, but having to deal with sexuality and all these different things in a different light, and having to pay, more importantly, and with medications and all these things on top of it, it's just one added expense. And with the amount of money that they can't even afford, their own supplies, and trying to implement different operations around the world, having to worry about this other expenditure has really played a lot into Donald Trump and the Trump administration not allowing this to continue for transgender ban. A series of tweets. Obama administration folks are really upset about this, obviously, because, this was one of their hot button issues. Tolerance for all and everyone. Donald Trump said transgender individuals to serve in any capacity in the U.S. military. Our military must be focused on decisive and overwhelming. And when having to be focused in on these particular things, what somebody's sex is or isn't, it's either you're a male or you're female, and having to worry about transitions or having to be out in the field, and because you're in surgery having your gender changed. I mean, I don't know. This is just one of these interesting conversations that will be a conversation, I think, for years to come. People will pay the money to have it done because they're not happy, and will they really ultimately be happy being another sex when ultimately they were an X or Y chromosome when they were born on this earth? You can't change that, even if you have gendered operation to change your genitalia. You're still what you were when you were born. Doesn't change it. Science can't change that. If you were in a plane crash and they analyzed your skeleton and your DNA, they would know what your gender was when you were born, not what you tried to switch yourself out to be. A lot of miserable people out there. I'm telling you, priorities, man, priorities. Just do it. What was it, the Nike deal with the little Nike slash? Whatever feels good, just do it. It's okay. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Actor and comedian Jim Carrey shocking some with a very bizarre interview where he mocked the self-aggrandizement of Hollywood celebrities. Movie actor, comedian Jim Carrey is being lauded by some for a very bizarre interview in which he appears to mock Hollywood's elite for self-aggrandizement, but ends up saying nothing matters. So this was kind of an interesting interview here. The interview with 55-year-old movie stars, the article continues here, occurred at Fashion Week in New York City with E! News host Kat Sadler. She says, "Hey, Jim," Sadler said, "I would have covered a lot of fashion weeks. This is the first time I run into Jim Carrey. Wait, tell me, is it true you're wandering the streets? You need a date to the party? What's up?" So Jim Carrey says, "No, I'm doing just fine," Carrey responded. There's no meaning to any of this. So I wanted to find the most meaningless thing that I could come up with and join, and here I am. I mean, you got to admit, it's completely meaningless," he added. "Well," they said, "they're celebrating icons inside. Do you believe in icons?" she asked. "They're celebrating icons? Boy," he responded, "that's the most lowest aiming, possibility that we could come up with." I mean, do you believe in icons, he asked her. "I believe in personalities. I don't believe that she exists, but I believe there's a wonderful fragrance in the air." "You don't believe certain icons have the power to make change, to think differently?" she challenged him. "To be bold, to inspire others, artistry? You're one of them." He says, "On the good foot, huh?" He exclaimed back, apparently quoting James Brown, "Shut her down now." "No, I don't believe in icons," he answered. "I don't believe in personalities. I believe that peace lies beyond personality, beyond invention, in disguise, beyond the red S that you wear on your chest that makes you bulletproof. I believe it's deeper than that. I believe that we're a field of energy dancing for itself." So she was really mystified by it. I think in his muse, he was just acting really flaky on there, just kind of put off with the whole thing, and realizing Jim Carrey telling the truth about Hollywood. And it's really bizarre interview, but really, I think, grown up to the point where, he's made a great name for himself in film, and does suffer from depression. A lot of our talented actors do. But the self-aggrandizing, the Emmy Awards, Grammy Awards, just the Grammys and all this other stuff for music and for movies and all the other stuff. Yeah, they love getting together and these fashions and who's wearing what and who's with who and who's doing what, all of this stuff that seems to be very consuming and, to the point to where people look up to them as icons. Oh, I want to be like her. I want to be like him, like the Kardashians, as being some kind of great role model for your kids. And I think